Ta-ta. It's been a couple months since the new year, and I'm just now getting to the point of sharing the story that happened on New Year's Eve. My family and I decided that this time we would celebrate the holiday not at home, but at my mother-in-law's house. We thought it would be more fun, and relatives were going to visit her from another city, so the company promised to be big and noisy. So my wife, children, and I arrived at my mother-in-law's house in advance to help with the preparation. Everything is as usual. We decorate the house, put up the Christmas tree, prepare treats. Relatives also pulled up, and the mother-in-law's house was quickly filled with laughter, conversation, and anticipation of the holiday. In general, having greeted the guests, we all sat down at the table almost at once. My mother-in-law, it must be said, tried her best. The table had everything that my soul desires, and all in the New Year theme. We were sitting, so we had a fun conversation. And as it happens at such feasts, everyone somehow immediately become closer, more cordial, although the situation is probably similar. And of course, we had a variety of drinks. From champagne to cognac, there was everything to raise the mood. However, because of this, I didn't remember much, but I remember the moment with fireworks clearly. All of us, full and tipsy, went outside to launch fireworks. Then we came back frozen. But what to do? We decided to warm up with some alcoholic beverages, and then, as if in a fog, all these cheerful toasts, jokes. After the feast reached its peak, some of us decided to move to the kitchen to have a little rest from the noise and bustle, and just to smoke in a quiet atmosphere. And of course, smoking was not without an additional round of drinks. As it happens, one without the other is not so interesting. In general, in this semi-quiet atmosphere in the kitchen, time flew by unnoticed. Somehow I suddenly felt that I was getting very tired. All these festive experiences, abundance of impressions, and of course, alcohol began to take their toll. I decided to go away for a while to lie down and gather my strength. And now, imagine, the room next to the kitchen, as if on demand, turned out to be free, and in it, an attractively empty bed, which seemed to me at that moment a real salvation. Without long thinking, I decided to take advantage of the opportunity. I lay down on the bed, expecting only a couple of minutes of rest, but fatigue was stronger than me. I didn't just fall asleep, I completely blacked out. And now, it was late at night, and after all that festive fun and plenty of alcohol, which my relatives and I had arranged at my mother-in-law's house, I gradually began to let go of its magical effect. Slowly, as if from afar, I began to return to reality. Lying on the bed, without opening my eyes and still on the edge of sleep and wakefulness, I instinctively reached for the nearest source of warmth and comfort, which for some reason was very close by. With warmth and tenderness, I embraced the figure lying next to me, believing it to be my wife. So nice, I thought, trying to find my strength after the raucous party, and the whole world seemed to stand still for a moment in anticipation. Initially, it was just a gentle embrace, as if trying to find comfort and warmth in each other's arms after a long and tiring day. My hand slowly began to slide down her back, exploring every part of her skin while she pressed closer and closer to me. These caresses gradually evolved into more intense and passionate touches, as we understood each other's desires without words. The smoothness and ease of the moment made everything that was happening especially magical. We were both absorbed in this feeling of intimacy, which we had not experienced for a long time because of the daily hustle and bustle and worries. And so, almost without noticing the time had passed, we found ourselves in the heart of that intimacy that is the ultimate expression of love and passion between couples. After she and I lay there for a while, inhaling the aromas of the intimacy that had just passed, I rolled onto my back, taking my time. My hands were still lazily resting on her hot skin. Time seemed to stand still at times like this, but suddenly in the midst of this idyll, I was thirsty, as strong and overwhelming as it usually is after a good drink. It's hot here, I thought, feeling dry inside, and this desire to drink began to distract from all other sensations. I didn't want to disturb the harmony and warmth of the moment, but the need for water became more and more insistent. With difficulty, I forced myself to tear myself away from this cozy atmosphere, and finally opening my eyes, I carefully sat down on the edge of the bed. My mind was still a mess from the recent events and, of course, from the excess alcohol. But when I looked around, I realized instantly that I wasn't in my own house. It was my mother-in-law's house, and next to it, under the same plaid as me, was lying my mother-in-law. What a twist! My memories of what had happened just 5 minutes ago suddenly resurfaced with renewed vigor. It wasn't my wife, as I could imagine in the fog of my own mind. It was her. All these moments, which I had previously attributed to harmless flirting, suddenly took on a completely different meaning. How did my mother-in-law end up in my bed? Apparently, my wife, seeing my drunken state, decided not to disturb me and quietly went home with the children, leaving me to spend the night at my mother-in-law. Well, since all the other rooms were already occupied by the guests, my mother-in-law had nothing to do but to stay next to me. There was only one thought in my head: what to do now? Determined to break the awkward silence, I cautiously asked her if she was asleep, to which she calmly told me she was not. "I'm going to take a shower," I said, trying to somehow organize my actions and thoughts. "Just be quick or the guests will wake up soon," she replied, adding another detail of reality to our unexpected morning conversation. Getting out of bed, I headed to the kitchen to quench my thirst and drank about a liter of water, just what I needed after a stormy night. Then, with the thought of my upcoming shower, which was supposed to be a sort of reset after everything that had happened, I headed for the bathroom. My mind was still spinning with thoughts of the awkwardness of the situation and how everyone would look at each other at breakfast. Yes, I admit that sometimes I thought about my mother-in-law, but they were just fantasies, nothing serious. Just a play of the imagination, you know. But for it to happen in reality, for such situations to go beyond my inner fantasy world, I certainly didn't expect that. After I finally got out of the bath, feeling at least a little better than before, I noticed that my mother-in-law was no longer in the room. At first it was a bit of a relief because I wasn't ready to face her and discuss everything that had happened. My thoughts swirled around the upcoming conversation, realizing that putting off this awkward but necessary conversation would only make it worse. I tried to put my thoughts and arguments together. I'll need to find the words to explain that I mistook her for my wife while drunk, that it was spontaneous and nothing serious, I thought. Worrying about how she would feel about this conversation, what her emotions and reactions would be, kept me on my toes. We need to find the right moment to have a serious and honest conversation, to clarify the situation and bring closure to it so that it doesn't hurt my family, and we can move on with our lives in peace. I convinced myself, as I prepared for the upcoming conversation, that I hoped would help us both deal with this difficult situation. As soon as morning came, the house began to come to life. One by one, the guests began to wake up, adding to the hustle and bustle of a large family gathering. No sooner had we recovered from the night's adventures than my family returned, and soon the house was once again filled with joyful cheer, laughter, and the clinking of dishes. At breakfast, which easily turned into lunch, toasts were toasted again, and the feast continued with renewed vigor. And then, somehow it happened that my mother-in-law and I found ourselves alone in the kitchen, having decided to go out for a smoke. At that moment, standing on the terrace and looking into her eyes, I found the strength to ask what had been tormenting me for so long, why she hadn't stopped me that night, hadn't woken me up. Her answer made me freeze. She didn't want me to feel uncomfortable, and she would do anything for her beloved son-in-law. Those words made my heart beat faster, and a whirlwind of emotions began to swirl in my head. I couldn't even find the words to respond. The holidays passed, and life seemed to be back on track. We still visited her sometimes, and my mother-in-law acted as if nothing special had happened between us. But the thought remained in my head that I had to sort out my feelings. So maybe I would decide to meet with her alone to talk about that night and what it meant to both of us. And maybe even more than one more meeting. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. And don't forget to like and ring the bell for more interesting stories. See you soon!